The final hearing has a fairly straightforward format. Both parties get to ask any questions they have of each other and their statements. They get to ask any questions of CAFCAS if they are attending in relation to their Section 7 report and their recommendations. Once questions have been completed, the judge will allow both parties to give what's known as a final submission, which could last anywhere between 10 and 20 minutes. And then the judge will retire and then come back and make an order, which is the final outcome. For those people who turn up with their barristers, quite often it's in the belief that you have to present your case to the court. But that's really kind of a myth. Because what happens is before the final hearing, as we know, is that you get the opportunity to submit your narrative statement and your evidence. And what a judge will do at the final hearing, or what the court will do, is to accept your statement as your case. And it's called evidence in chief, which means you don't actually have to repeat what's in your statement. Now, what the other side can do is to ask you questions about your statement, but of course at that point, you can't rely on any support from your barrister. Now, if you have a barrister, what they can do is ask questions on your behalf to the other side. But hold on a minute, why not ask those questions yourself? I mean, there's no legal disputes going on in a final hearing over child arrangements. It's just very human sort of differences in terms of with whom a child lives or how much time or what time they spend with the other party. For example, the father wants little Johnny to stay with him every other weekend from Friday after school, and he'll take little Johnny back to school on the Monday. Mum says, no, that's too much. Little Johnny should be staying with Dad after school Friday, but return to her at 5 o'clock on Sunday. The court will try and find out the rationale and the reasoning between Dad's position and the reasoning between Mum's position. They may refer to CAFCAS as to their view, and then the court will make a decision. You don't need a lawyer to argue those points because none of those points have a legal basis. The judge will consider, or the court will consider, the child welfare checklist, and that's the only thing they'll consider when making a decision. If there is CAFCAS officer present, then that CAFCAS officer is the expert, their court-appointed social worker, and actually their views carry significant weighting, and they would probably have already presented their position in their Section 7, which is why more often than not, actually in about 95% of times, the court will just follow the recommendations of CAFCAS because their reasoning is produced on analysis and experience. Whilst as your parents' point of view, it's not, it's just your point of view. People spend thousands of pounds on lawyers for a final hearing, and my suggestion to you is that it's absolutely not necessary. As a McKenzie friend, I can support you, we can support you through that process. And as you ask questions to the other party, then of course we can even sit next to you and just suggest questions you should ask them to help you go through your list. And if there's any new questions which spring up, we can actually help you and talk to you and say, well, why don't you ask this question? Why don't you ask this question? And we can support you through the whole process, an absolute fraction of the cost of lawyers. So if you're looking at attending a final hearing, then please pick up the phone. You have nothing to lose by picking up the phone and giving me a call for a 1 hour free consultation. At least by giving me a call, it then gives you a choice. If you want to have a lawyer and you have the funds to pay for that lawyer, and that's your preference, and of course that's your choice. But we provide an alternative. There is, after all, no advantage in the court system by having a lawyer. The whole system is built up on the principle of access to justice for everyone, where there's no advantage whatsoever by having a lawyer present, because if there was an advantage, we'd have a corrupt two-tier system which benefited people with money. And we just do not operate that system in this country, thank goodness. So you're not paying for any advantage whatsoever by having a lawyer. So I suggest you keep that money and quite frankly put it towards your children's future education because they need it more. Looking forward to your call.